right, this week we read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow by Tom King and Bilquis Evely. I believe that's how you pronounce that. But basically, this is just a huge 8-issue story. It's an odyssey of a character we get to meet for the first time who just kind of happens to bump into Supergirl, who wants to have a drink for her 21st birthday. And it kind of turns out she wants revenge. Drew, what did you think of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow?
All right, so I really enjoyed all 8 issues. Let's go ahead and preface this with that. But I had 2 immediate thoughts upon reading this first issue, and one was, it's just Rick and Morty. He's just ripping off Rick and Morty. It's just weird aliens and a drunk superhero who can just figure things out. With and a little talkative sidekick, and that's fine. I enjoyed it. I thought that was clever, at least clever little homage. And then the art, Evely, I'm not really familiar with, but it feels like he and or her, they are doing their best. Daniel Warren Johnson, which I would have probably liked this book a little bit better if Daniel Warren Johnson was drawing it. But I kind of get those vibes in the strokes and the way that the panels are laid out, which is enjoyable. I thought it was good. It's pretty, and there's a lot of weird stuff happening on the page.
Yeah, I thought about making that point, like, oh, maybe I'm crazy, but you just confirmed that, like, this is kind of Daniel Warren Johnson-esque in the art department, which that got me thinking about his Wonder Woman run and how awesome that was. I definitely got a lot of vibes from that Dead Earth run, which I really enjoyed. My other favorite thing about the art, which it goes in a lot of Tom King's works that I've read, I was kind of extremely happy in the 8 issues that I read. We didn't get that like tic-tac-toe board panel format in every issue.
Yeah.
He loves so much, but I get why he likes to use it, but I'm just like, come on, let's do something a little different. And then this was the book where they do something a little different. So I overall, I thought it was a bit, I don't know, Wiggles, but Scriggles at first. That's your name for Gary Frank. That's what I kind of felt like in the first issue. But as we went on, especially I think it was issue 2 where she basically has to fight that big space dragon. I started to really dig the art at that point. JB, what about you?
I thought the art was fantastic, man. I think the colors that were used, I think the space adventure that this is really lends itself to having some dynamic colors because of the, being out in space and the black that you can use in your backgrounds. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah.
Nice. Jason, what about you? What are your opening thoughts on Supergirl?
Well, I liked it a lot. I believe Tom King described this as true grit in space, and that is exactly what it is.
I felt that
girl's father gets killed.
Felt the story before. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
yeah,
totally. Yeah, so I mean, Tom King likes his old TCM Turner Classic Movies kind of rerun specials, and he'll watch all of those and kind of redo them for a new generation. I think Human Target was based on an old pulp movie. Forget what it was called. That slips my mind, but yeah, so that's kind of his kind of thing that he's been doing a lot recently. But I dig it. He has good movie taste. I think he does it well whenever he wants to. You know, this one, I guess like you said before, maybe before in the pre-show before we were recording, but yeah, a little flowery in the words, but I mean, it is kind of just kind of poetic, with the narrator. I mean, after all, she is writing a book. It's like from her novel, I'm assuming, some of the narration, so it fits proper. And the dialogue is pretty heartfelt and funny at times when it needs to be, and it's a good roller coaster. I mean, I forgot how like tragic and depressing a lot of this book was. I mean, big surprise, Tom King writing depressing stuff. That shouldn't be a surprise, but just the events that took place in these was like, oh man, that was pretty brutal. So I'm sure we'll go over that later on, but yeah. Overall,
reading this, knowing that this is, or reading this with the idea that this will be adapted by James Gunn into a movie, and that's how I read it. I'm trying to think how he could do this. The way that he does his character development, I'm excited to see what he's going to do with this character between these two characters, and what happens in this little romp through space with these two.
I think also the fact that it starts off as a really, and throughout the narration is framed as a fantasy story, whereas the story itself is a universe trotting science fiction story. I think a lot of the art in the first issue seems a little bit more scribbly because it kind of has that etched feeling because it's a fantasy book. It definitely has a different feel once you leave that world. Even as soon as you see like Supergirl in her glory and the spaceship that she has rented for this excursion, like as soon as that kind of pops on page, you realize that artistically this book is going to go different places than it originally did in the beginning of the story. And I kind of see that as a stylistic choice. I agree. I think the book definitely grew artistically from that. Initially, it wasn't what I had wanted, but it definitely became something more than that. And I think that, it does have that True Grit vibe to it. I loved that original movie growing up. I love that John Wayne film. I used to watch John Wayne movies with my grandfather all the time, and that's one of my favorites. Really hilarious. And I think that it really balances the kind of heavy subjects that he works with here with the right amount of tongue-in-cheek kind of humor as well along the way, which is fun and keeps things moving and keeps it from being too heavy. So kind of well balanced.
This is heavy. This is heavy.
For sure.
Purple Town and the genocide that happens there. This is heavy.
The fact that one villain can casually stroll into town and be like, well, I guess, genocide. Like what? That's a bit much.
Yeah, King and Everly, I think, are working on one or two new comics as well. I think they're on Dark Horse. So they're kind of keeping that team together for a bit for other stuffs too. So keep an eye out for that. I think one of them just came out, but I have not read some of those just yet. There's one I think might be the same duo, but it is on Dark Horse as well. It might be part of the same universe that they're doing, but it looks more of like a Conan type thing, which I'm interested in. I like that kind of sword and magic stuff.
Now, before we continue, I did want to tell the story of why I only own one issue of this, and that is because of my boy Crypto. So in the words of Cat Wren Figures, our friend Cat, hopefully you're doing well, Cat. If Crypto dies, we riot. And in this issue, basically there's a whole thing going on where Supergirl, she goes to this planet. She just wants to have a drink. The only way a drink's going to affect her if she goes to a planet with a red sun. So she goes to this planet with a red sun and bumps into our pal Ruthie or Ruth Yee. I was going to ask you guys to pronounce that too. Ruthie or Ruth Yee?
I've been calling her Ruthie the whole time, so let's just go with that.
Okay, good. That's what I was going to stick with.
I pronounce it like Beyonce.
Ruthie.
Ruthie.
So she's like, please avenge my father's death.
Ruthie.
And her and Crypto are like, okay, we'll help this lost poor soul out for a little bit and see what happens, but you shouldn't kill anybody. So because the red sun, they don't have superpowers, but going to try to help out anyway. And a lot of action happens. Basically, they get poison arrows fired at them. Supergirl, she no-sells like a champ, but unfortunately, it's only going to take one more arrow. And who takes that arrow? Crypto. What I don't, I usually don't get too emotional reading a lot of stuff, but when I see Crypto take an arrow, I haven't been this heartfelt sad since the other awful Crypto story, which is actually a really awesome story by Alan Moore, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, where they decided to move on to the modern age of comics, basically after Crisis on Infinite Earths. So Alan Moore's like, hey, what happens to the Silver Age Superman? Can we give this guy kind of an ending? And in this ending, like, he just gets attacked by all of his villains, has all of his friends there at the Fortress of Solitude. And unfortunately, one of the casualties of war against Superman's villains was poor Crypto in a very similar situation. And I was very unhappy about that. So at least they're like, we might be able to save him. And then I was like, oh, now I got to read all 8 issues.
Now I got to read all 8 issues.
But at first I was just like, I don't know what continuity we're on anymore. DC doesn't seem to care too much about continuity at this point. Maybe they're circling back, I think, finally, and realizing they need to. But when this was released, I was just like, I'm not going to read a book where they kill off Crypto. I can't do it. Drew,
it was extra Sorry, I was gonna say it's extra heartbreaking too, because we realized that like it described the dog how it didn't know it was gonna get hurt, so it was like a shock to it too, like all of us when we read it. It's like, oh
yeah, because he's just going along for the ride for the 21st birthday. He has no idea that all of a sudden he don't got no powers.
Drew, I know you're a big Crypto fan. What did you think?
Look, if you can pull it off right, Crypto can be the great sympathetic character, the great baby face whose comeback can be that much more powerful. I think Tomasi did it in Superman Rebirth. Within the first couple of issues, Jonathan Kent fried his cat, and then later Crypto, while protecting Jonathan, gets eradicated by the Eradicator, and upon the defeat of the Eradicator, he kind of spews Crypto back out into existence, which is like, okay, cool, we got him back. But it became a moment of learning for John, and I really liked how they did that. Although initially in that first issue, I'm like, oh, you killed Crypto, and it was heartbreaking. I'm a dog guy. I love dogs, and Crypto he's a good boy. He's a good boy.
Yeah.
The one thing here is it's like, spoiler alert, because we're going to go over this whole damn thing. They use Crypto as the story point, and later on she's like, nah, he'll be fine. I just made that up. And it's so it's so stupid. Why don't do that to me. Don't do that. I'm waiting to see how this turns out. And she's like, nah. Like,
it's fine.
I do have to mention
I didn't like one other typical Tom King bait and switch.
They're getting married. They're getting married.
Yeah, I was like,
they're getting married.
What are we doing here?
Maybe it's supposed to be 12 issues. Maybe it's supposed to be 12 issues, and like, you know what? Let's just make it 8. And he's like, all right, bye, Crypto story. Let's just cut that.
I don't think that happened. It's probably supposed to be 6, and they're like, well, we can make it 8. He's like, all right, let's do that.
I do have to mention one other Crypto story I just thought of while you were talking, and it was another heartbreaking one where you get to see from Crypto's perspective. It was like whatever issue of Superman was right after Infinite Crisis in about 2005-06. And basically in the Infinite Crisis run, Connor Kent Superboy gets killed saving the universe, basically. And there's an issue of Superman that comes out soon after that where you get to see from Crypto's perspective Connor not coming home. And just how heartbroken he is sitting at the Kent farm and, waiting for him. Episode. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's pretty much that episode to a T, except, in the world of superheroes. Brutal. So another fun, heartbreaking Crypto story if you want to see some, ultimate babyface Crypto, as Drew was talking about.
Have we ever had a heel one with like Cujo, Old Yeller type Crypto before?
I gotta think there's probably something out there.
Crypto ever die and deceased? He might have been one badass enemy.
Yeah,
that would have been badass. Cool. Watching like Green Arrow try to take on Crypto.
Yeah,
I got a bow and arrow, you dumb fuck. I got a fucking rabid kryptonite dog.
Someone get Tom Taylor on the phone now. But as we went on with the story, basically their ship gets stolen by Krim, this villainous a-hole who basically everywhere he goes, he just causes the maximum amount of havoc somehow. So like Drew was talking about earlier, there's basically a planet with 2 different like colors of species. Obviously that hits home with a lot of, past and even present civil rights stuff. And basically Krim shows up and just his idea is like, why don't you guys just kill those people? Then Supergirl has to deal with the repercussions as best as possible. And it's just, there's a lot of issues like that where they're just basically following this guy's wake of destruction until they catch up to him. But in that as well, there's like, I like how each issue is its own individual thing. basically it's its own individual story up until kind of like the last one or two where they finally get to deal with Clem. So between that, was there an issue you guys preferred the most? Like whether they went to that, they fought the big space dragon or dealt with those two species, wanting to fight each other or anything like that. Was there a favorite you guys had?
I would say, since I didn't get, all through 8 of them, I kind of cut to the end there after I got through 4. The 3, where the 2 of them are on, on the space charter and she fights that dragon by I don't get this. She asked for reds.
Oh yeah, she starts tripping her
this
balls off.
She's tripping balls on red kryptonite drugs that people take, and she's like, "Oh, it affects us different." That was cool, man. That was
it's like, hey, I got a prescription for it.
Yeah, the guy's like,
oh, whatever.
Whatever, just give it to me. And then she goes out there and lays, smack on that dragon, which was beautifully drawn, by the way. That was beautifully drawn. That would probably be my favorite episode. Plus the kids' interaction with the people that are laying on her. She reminded me of young Sheldon. The way she was explaining why that guy needed to get his head off of her, she the narration in that book, it was pretty funny.
Plus, post-COVID, you learned how to wash your hands.
That's right.
You learned how to wash your hands.
What do you think, Jason?
There's like so many good parts. I mean, of course, we talked about the Purple Town, issue. I was going to say episode. One part that sticks out of my mind is the part where like Clem gets to this planet and like this 2 buddies are running, and then one of them is getting chopped and he's like screaming, and then he dies, and the guy who starts getting chopped as well and realizes that it's him that's screaming. He's hearing himself scream. He thought it was his friend, or it was at one point until he died, but it's just then he cut out and you see him, he's just like a chicken nugget, pretty much, just no limbs, just sitting there in the bed. And it's just like, it's just so graphic. It's way more graphic than like you would think this comic would be or should be, but I guess I forgot how heavy this series was. It was a nice refresher. I think another good part that I liked a lot was like describing how Supergirl dealt with like almost like the PTSD of the aftermath of seeing all these like Holocaust things over and over again. And it goes into her like, I guess, how the way she carries herself with grace and stuff, and patience and understanding, and like I guess one part says, I think I have it here. It says she held back her heat vision to look you in the face. She warmed her breath each time to converse with you, instead of like cold breath. It's everything she did. It was just like in consideration of someone else, because if she was just to be who she was, it would just annihilate you, without even trying, really. And then it goes on to say, I believe this effort hurt her. I believe she lived her life in pain. So it's like, oh man, just like someone who's in pain constantly. Supergirl's different from Superman, where she witnessed like death of her people in mass 3 times over by the time she was 14. It's just so much grief. Her whole entire life it's been pain. It's just seems like she is able to take more pain and suffer more than Superman. So that's pretty neat and different character on the whole entire Krypton type of person. I thought that was interesting.
I also love the narration where the first time that guy comes up to her in the bar and he goes, "Are you Supergirl?" and he pulls out the gun on her, and Superman killed or jailed my brothers, and she goes on to tell the story that this happens a lot, and everybody they don't want to go challenge Superman, but when they see Supergirl, they get all chest out to all just be put in their place when it's all said and done, because she is powerful.
And that's why I was gonna dig how she catches the bullet with her eye, like was that Superman Returns?
Yeah,
it was the only good scene in that movie. Besides the fact that Spacey, who is like #1 creep in the world right now, was a really great Lex Luthor. I liked how it was kind of monster of the week, sandwiched between the introduction of these characters and this quest, and then the end, which is kind of like the wrap it up and everything with a bow and a lesson for everybody. But the monster of the week thing kind of kind of gets old, in my opinion. I think that this could have been 6 issues and been absolutely fine if he combined some of the, you know, the atrocities into, you know, 1 issue instead of 2. But I really did like the issue where she you know, she's tripping on kryptonite to become a you know, basically a non-ethereal being and fight a energy dragon in space. It's just like,
That's awesome.
Right. And I think that, like, that's why I draw comparisons to Rick and Morty's with stuff that Jason was talking about, is that show is hilarious and buffoonish and a lot of its gimmicks and its bits, but it's a show about pain and loss and trauma in a way. And that's like, and finding a way to kind of laugh that away through and balance that out through some buffoonish bits. Like, Supergirl's kind of a bitch. Like, she's like hung over for like the first half of this story arc. Like, she's just like, look, I was in a red sun getting fucked up. You got to give me a minute here. And like, she's just kind of like that. Like the one part where she's talking about how you would assume that she's patient, and she's like, you'd be wrong. And she's just like stomping around, like looking for solutions to these problems. She's just kind of at a point during some of this where she's just like, I don't have time to be polite. I have to get the job done.
Were you surprised with how many times that, you know, in a comic book they bleep it out with the little @ signs or whatever, you know, but she cursed a lot. She was dropping cursing a lot.
JB, you ever been hungover? Because I curse a lot whenever I'm hungover.
Yeah. You know, where she goes, did you know he was lying? Did you hear his heartbeat? And she's like, no, but I know a fucking liar, man. And he was fucking lying.
Look, seen a lot of shit bags. I know shit bag mentality.
I kind of like that she was doing that, though, because it ultimately does separate her even more from cousin Kal-El, who never swears ever.
Oh, no.
So anytime they can give an extra character trait to separate her from Superman, I'm always all for that.
I like the little themes of like existentialism throughout. Just it hits every now and then, just every now and then. There's this one part where I guess like Ruthie and Supergirl was holding Ruth, and they're being shot at, I guess probably when they're in that town.
In that town, and the assassination attempt.
She said, like, I howled not out of fear, but in recognition of the universe that conspires both to kill us and to keep us safe from harm. So it's just like, you know, it's just the possibility of anything at any time, and just screamed at the horror of that. You know, it wasn't even specifically the guy shooting at her is why she was screaming. You know, it's just I thought that was pretty powerful, and those little things hit just, you know, throughout the story.
Yeah, I would say my favorite, you know, we were calling them episodes. This is very episodic in terms of, it was almost like it was kind of written as a TV series. You know, you have pretty much your starting point, your ending point, and then everything in between's its own thing, but still has themes on how to get to that end point, of course. But anyway, I'd say like my top 2, I really like the Green Sun issue, because we're talking about Dead Earth earlier and the Daniel Warren Johnson stuff. That's where I got most of my crossover from that. I think just the way that planet was structured, and basically Ruthie had to fight dinosaurs while Supergirl suffered for 9 hours. And I just like the other dialogue from Supergirl where she's like, this planet was made for Kal-El and to stop him, but the Justice League showed up to save him. And then Ruthie's like
15 minutes.
How long was he here
45.
for? 45 minutes. When does the sun go down? 9 hours. It's like, what? You can't do this for 9 hours. She's like, that's nothing to me. She's basically talking tough, obviously, but by the time she's like leaving the planet, she's just like 45 minutes. She's still bitter that she had to spend 9 hours and he had to spend 45 minutes. So I always like that little, like, you don't even see Superman in this book, but she's still always like kind of bickering, being in his shadow, unfortunately.
It's
and of
funny
course
how she was teleported there because that orb thing, and it does return later on. What was that area that she flew to that like the colors go away and it's just like black and white?
The end of the universe.
I mean, I guess I don't know. I wasn't familiar with that continuity, you know, in the continuity of the DC, or what that meant, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever truly explain that. I don't know if it would have been referred to as what's called the bleed, I think it was called, at least like during the Infinite Crisis era, where it was kind of like that
Between
void in
universes.
between universes. Yeah, that's where like
Isn't
when
that
they
where
turn
Dupe lives?
The edge of the paper on the
Dupe
pretty
comics.
lives
much,
in
yeah,
the
that's where
margins.
Dupe would live. Mixed Pitalik. Captain Atom lived there for a while when he was fighting the Wildstorm universe for some reason, whatever that was. I think the whole
He
like
had margins in the
countdown crap.
Wildstorm universe.
Yeah, he had a feud with the Wildstorm universe, I believe. I didn't read it, but I saw the issues on the
Jesus.
shelf.
I'll
But
be
yeah, I
pirating
think
that
that
as
was
soon as we're
probably
done here.
And my other favorite issue, just in terms of the depth and the emotional depth, of course, was the whole like Fall of Krypton issue, where you really dive deep into the origin of Supergirl, which we all kind of know off the top of our head, just because you know we're all familiar with Superman, therefore Supergirl, but you never really realize the emotional depth of it because she was 14 and he was a baby, so he never really would remember or have lived the Kryptonian lifestyle, or she was lived long enough to remember all of it, and she was also part of that like Argo City raft that was doomed to fail, but it was, you know, their last grasp of trying to hang on and live. So it was just like we all knew how Krypton fell, but we really never hear too much about the Argo City story side of things and how awful that was. Did you guys like that?
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, I mean, I didn't. I think I remember when I hearing about her live through atrocities, but I didn't know like the depth of it prior to reading this comic. Not today, but I mean the first time around.
As somebody who's more versed in the DC universe than I am, Supergirl, is this the same Supergirl who came back in the Batman Superman Dark Side?
That's what I was getting ready to mention exactly. The only other callback I can kind of think of that this story would bounce off of is that story where Mike Turner and Jeff Loeb brought back Kara Zor-El, because she was gone from the 80s crisis all the way to that point. We had like, I think it was the composite Supergirl, like I think her name was
Matrix.
Kara Danvers. Yeah, the composite Matrix, sorry.
Yeah, she was a blonde, right?
Yeah,
oh yeah,
they pretty much looked exactly the same. She was just made of putty somehow, because Lex Luthor with giant red hair and big
clones.
Beard anyway, yeah, clones,
robots. Clayface?
But yeah, she was gone for pretty much 20 years, and then they realized like, oh yeah, we pretty much rebooted kind of again. So she came back on that ship.
She's kind of been the same ever since, correct? Like
correct.
The Supergirl rebirth was the same.
Yeah, I didn't read a ton of the New 52 stuff because I felt like they just did a terrible job with the Super Family in general. So I kind of skipped most of that.
There's some good stuff in there, but it's mostly hit or miss.
Yeah, but apparently a lot of the other good story beats, and I haven't read this, come from her time. Like she basically just was so bitter and angry with the universe, she became a Red Lantern for a while, which I do kind of want to read through that at some point. So that sounded very interesting.
You said Lantern and I checked out.
That's a story for another time. So those are probably my favorite two issues, but getting to how the story ended, basically she explains to Ruthie, like, I need to find this guy. I will help you find this bad guy so we can get his poison arrow. We're going to use that poison to cure Crypto's poisoning. But it turns out at the very end, she explains to Ruthie, like, the whole reason I went on this journey, like, Crypto's fine. She's with your veterinarians, which are some of the best in the galaxy, apparently, according to Supergirl.
Great bets.
Yeah, Crypto's all good. And first off, I was like,
retcon in the 7th issue.
You waited 8 issues to figure that out.
Yeah.
He retcons himself.
Like, he's okay. I don't care. Retcon it, please. Good. Oh, by the way, we forgot to mention Comet the Super Horse. Yeah. We turned up a guy who was in love with Supergirl, and he's the one who takes the emotional, death bullet for Supergirl, basically. Drew, what did you think of Comet?
Comet the Super Horse. I remember Comet the Super Horse. I don't remember him being a dude.
Yeah.
Apparently he's a dude, and he dies instead of Crypto, and nobody cares. Like,
nobody cares.
Nobody cares. She's like, even in the story, she's like, I didn't know it was a dude, and she's like, yeah, it was a dude. He didn't want people to know he was a dude, and then that's it. Like that's it. He's just laying there dead at the end.
I remember the first time I read this when it came out, I was like, what is this? It was so weird to me. It felt so left. Like, I mean, I didn't know the
it's a
history of the
Silver Age
characters,
thing,
so
isn't
I
it?
was like,
I believe so.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
It's so
I
weird.
don't think he was a dude in the Silver Age, but I'm pretty sure that horse was in the Silver Age.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you, when I got to the end of this and I perused the end at the beginning of the show here, you guys said, hey, cut to the chase, get to the end. So I cut to the end and I'm flipping through here. And you know what? During this whole adventure, this child, Ruthie, is every time she speaks of, her quest to find this person who killed her father, it kind of reminds me of The Princess Bride. With the guy saying, he introduces himself and
prepared to die.
I'm looking for the six-handed man who killed my father, prepared to die. He knows exactly what he's going to say to him when he finds him, and he's going to prepare to die. And then she gets to the end and she can't fucking kill him. I don't get it. This whole time you've been waiting, you get there and you can't kill him. So Supergirl says she's going to kill him, and then she doesn't fucking kill him either. Come on. We get to the conclusion. And she just locks him away for 100 years in the negative zone.
200 years, right? Or something like that.
300 years, I believe.
300
years. If I did my math right, I think it's 300 years. But before that, I think that was Supergirl's mission originally the whole time. She's just like, she didn't go on that whole odyssey to find this guy. She went on this whole odyssey to save her soul, basically. Because Supergirl, she was carrying this burden, this want for vengeance and blood from the end of Krypton and how that went down. But at the end of the day, to me, I've been watching a lot of Doctor Who lately. So Kara kind of reminds me of the Doctor from Doctor Who, because essentially in the newer run, he is the last of the Time Lords. Like, he is out of people to be angry with at this point, but he's still angry. It still burns inside him, and there's nothing he can do about it but press forward and move on. So Kara sees this young lady wanting to just go on a thirst for vengeance mission, and she's just like, this girl seems really nice. She seems really caring. She loves her family. She loved her father. What do I need to do here? And she finally just like, all right, I'm going to go on this journey and help this girl out. And then that's what she taught her, to value life, I think was supposed to be the whole thing anyway. So maybe you got it, maybe you didn't. At least that's what I got out of it. Guys down below, am I right?
Yeah, I think
I would have been just as happy if the lead character would have just cut his head off at the end. I would have been cool with it.
I thought that character died when he was crushed, had his skull crushed with a cane, because somebody who's old and frail and gets hit in the head with a cane. They're probably gonna
you saw his lift his arm.
You know what? I didn't pay that much attention. I was just like, this thing's over.
Let's slow down for a second and explain the ending real quick before we get into the
before we get too far into that.
Okay,
I was confused, but I just want you guys to know that not to be confused with Captain Comet. Comet is the name of two fictional comic book characters owned by DC Comics, whose adventures have been published by that same company. First character was a sapient horse with magical powers who was once a centaur in Ancient Greece, and the second character is a shapeshifter with three forms: male, female, and winged centaur. Both characters are connected to the Superman family of titles, whereas the first character was unused for 40 years and returned in Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, where he sacrificed his life in the eighth issue to save Supergirl. So that's what Wikipedia has to say about Comet, the super horse.
Nice.
I might insert the more you know.
The character that nobody gives a shit about that takes the ultimate sacrifice.
He dead now. Yep. He gone. He gone.
He did a good.
He did a good night.
Yeah, the ending was something I had to do a double take on as well. I guess to slow it all down and explain the ending real quick. So basically, there's a beach. Ruthie and Krim, I can't remember anymore. They're on a beach, and Supergirl is fighting the bad guys associated with our main antagonist here. And basically, Ruthie has the sword. The guy's tied up. All she has to do is walk over to him, chop his head off. She gets her vengeance. She wins, but she can't do it. She just can't do it because she's been actually paying attention and listening to all of Supergirl's guidance this whole time. And it gets to the point where Supergirl finally deals with the brigands up in space chases them away because they're supposed to be like one of the biggest armies and forces in the universe. But Supergirl's anger is bigger than all of them. So she comes to the seashore, and her anger, she almost just does the deed herself. But then Ruthie has to talk her out of it, and she's just like, good. Glad we're on the same page finally. And they throw down the sword, and they decide to team up to figure out a good, how do we bring justice to this guy? And the idea was classic Superman fashion, like General Zod, they lock him away in the Phantom Zone for, I believe, 300 years. Like they kind of document like the first 100 years he was shouting at the heavens, wanting out and stuff. The second 100 years he was just like started to feel bad about things and try to do right. And by the third set of 100 years, they decided, oh, he's finally, he's repenting, basically. He's finally good. So they let him out. Supergirl accommodates the release, which you see in the distant future. The whole time there's this like elaborate narration throughout all 8 issues. And it was an old version of Ruthie writing a book about her experiences meeting Supergirl. And at the end of this book, the way it ends and what we see on the page are almost 2 different things. So what we see on our page, basically, not in old lady Ruthie's book. She's old. They're all old now, by the way, except for Supergirl. Her and Crypto look like they haven't aged. Except for Supergirl is wearing pants now. Is the only difference, basically. So Supergirl and old Ruthie, they're just paying a visit. She releases Clem. Somebody please correct me. It's released from the Phantom Zone, and he is immediately on his knees. Oh, I'm so sorry about your father. Oh, sorry, everything. Was terrible, the worst ever. And old lady Ruthie just takes her cane, bonk, right in the head. He falls down. He's moving his arm just to prove to us, the reader, he is still alive, we think, most likely. But then in the dialogue of the book, which it doesn't say that specifically, we just have to assume that. I had to go read an article online, basically, just to confirm that was the book, basically. It says, and Supergirl on that shore killed him. So, like, you're reading one thing, you're seeing another thing play out on the page. So it kind of, like, sort of left it open-ended, but
she said, like, a little bit earlier, like, sorry,
yeah.
You had to read that drivel or whatever,
yeah, exactly.
that fictitious event. And so you're kind of reading the fictitious ending.
Yes.
Is how I took it.
But yeah, it sounds like Ruthie made that the ending of the book, so the brigands wouldn't be looking for their cohort and trying to still get revenge for their cohort. That way Makes sense. Dead. They can move on. They're not going to go after Supergirl and Ruthie ever again. So if he was still alive, they'd try to get him out of the Phantom Zone, basically. So, JB, what do you think about all this?
I think I'm excited to be reading new material again. Thank you so much for inviting me back, and I look forward to reading our next book, whatever it is. This one was fantastic. Tom King's a little wordy for me, and he hit some serious points, and I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed the art, and I enjoyed this panel more than anything. Thanks for letting me do it. Appreciate it.
Now, JB, in classic Modern Man fashion, since we're wrapping up here, what score are you giving this? It's got to be on the CGC scale. You can use gold labels, blue labels, any of that if you'd like.
A little let down by the end. I'm still gonna be in the near mint. We're gonna go 9 to 9.4.
All right. Jason, what about you?
I liked it a lot. I don't know. I'd probably give it like a 9.4, 9.6. Probably I'll go with the 9.6.
Oh man, I really like this story. I thought it was well executed, but it's an 8.5. I think that anytime you're like, I say the ending hit me one way, and JB said it hit him another way, and you said, well, it's so well written that I had to go to another website to figure out what the fuck it meant. Anytime that's the case, you've got an issue, and I think that issue is that, there's some problems here with the overall message. I think that Tom King is very flowery in his prose, and I think that framing this as the narration of an adventure in a fantasy story has given him the opportunity to be as flowery with his prose as he likes. while exploring a different genre altogether. Does it all come together perfectly? No, it doesn't. The crypto bait and switch takes a lot away from me. The Comet, the super horse, it's like, oh, well, Comet, the super horse is in this? Well, he's dead. And he was a dude. And I'm like, what? All right, I guess. No problem. The fact that I don't really know Supergirl that well, I think that this did a good job giving me a history of Supergirl and who she is as a character and how she would react in these situations. I think that the character interactions between her and Ruthie were really good. Learning that it was based on True Grit makes me think that Rick and Morty's probably based on True Grit, because this is way more like Rick and Morty. Larson, I'm going to ask you to give me a little bit of information here in the middle of my end review. Is like, how many alien species are there in the DCU that were just ignored in the interest of putting a hairy, big-nosed, drooling Rick and Morty looking alien in this book? I just feel like they do mention Thanagarians one time when the Blues were talking about the hotel.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, they're in there. But like, there's just all these alien species that are just nondescript, weird aliens that all seem like none of them have like a superhero of their own. They're all like kind of like short, stout, cartoony looking dudes. And you know, it's fine, but I just feel like they missed an opportunity to kind of make this more of a DC book. I don't have a problem with that. I think the art was really good. If not leaving me wanting Daniel Warren Johnson to just draw this book. But high marks there. I just think that the story missed a little bit here and there, and didn't really stick the landing.
I got one more point. I read this thinking the whole time as I'm reading this is going to be adapted into a movie by James Gunn. This is going to be adapted into a movie by James Gunn. This is the character that he is going to try and model. And I really enjoyed it with my mind thinking he's going to do wonders with this story arc and how fantastic and spacey and trippy it really is. And all those little characters you're talking about, all the aliens, maybe he gives us a little bit more taste, but I was excited reading it from the beginning, knowing that it was going to be adapted into a movie.
There's like one line that kind of like summarized like everything in here. It was like right before Supergirl was thinking of killing, the main bad guy. And Ruthie's narration said, and there was a rub of it. She'd done all this to teach me good from bad. And in the process, she's seen enough to lose track herself. And that just kind of just summarizes the whole entire, 8 issues for me. Is just, Supergirl's just went through all that and kind of lost her way trying to explain what was good, and just became unsure of what was really good just because she's seen even more bad,
It's too big, we're too small, or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I guess for me, I think I'm going to go a 9.2, but a gold label signed by the artist, probably.
Nice. I like that.
The art did grow on me quite a bit. At first I was like, it's okay, I guess. But by the time I got to the last issue, I'm like, okay, I really enjoy this. Especially like JB, you mentioned it's going to be adapted in the movie. They better have that space dragon fight where she's basically the Phoenix fighting a dragon. I'd be happy with that movie if they just gave me that scene. But yeah, Tom King, he can be very wordy. I think it worked well in some spots, but other spots I found myself just drifting onto other things. I'm just like, okay, enough's enough. I did like the episodic nature, as I stated earlier. But Drew made a good point. Like, when I got to go to a different internet article just to confirm the ending of your book, you lose like a point or two with me there. So.
Hey man, you did, not me. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure who out there.
I just got it wrong and lived with my life.
I just needed to make sure crypto is still alive. No.
Yeah. But what's your score, Carson?
9.2 gold label.
Okay. I have a question for you. You've asked a lot of questions of us. I have a question for the panel here, and especially for you. You take any other member of the Superman family, whether it be Connor or the almighty Cal. How long do you think? How many issues? I'm sorry. How many panels do you think Cal wraps up this creme nonsense? Like, Cal ain't taking 8 issues to find creme. Creme ain't nothing. All right. And Supergirl, she might have lived for 9 hours on the green sun planet. But I mean, You know, she might want to show up Cal here and there. She might have had more trauma than Cal, but Cal ain't letting Krem get off world.
It's a 300+ year odyssey versus one panel, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, also to
Basically.
be fair, she was
Superboy
depowered.
Prime would have gone back in time. It would have
Oh my
taken
God.
half a panel, like half a world balloon to catch.
The
Well, the whole thing
Superboy
is
Prime
she
would
was-
have just
she was-
blew up everything.
Yeah, the whole thing is the point though is like she was depowered by the red sun, so she had to like hitchhike the whole entire way to catch up. You know, if she was full powered, you know, like Cal would be, he would just fly there in a second and get her. You know, get Krem.
But Cal would, I think he would agree with Kara's effort here. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
she didn't go on a mission to stop this guy. She went on a mission to save this girl's soul, basically.
And
Right.
all of those purples died.
People died.
because
Yeah, I was
she
gonna say
taking
that's
her out.
where it gets a
Depowered,
little
that's
gray
why.
areas. Like,
Well, that's what I was
this
Taking her
guy
saying.
out.
She
caused a
couldn't.
lot of destruction.
That's what I was saying. She couldn't do those things that Superman could. She couldn't fly there in a second because she was depowered, or else she would have ended this in a second to save all those people from that happening. It wasn't, you know, that was part of it, was saving
Mhm.
this girl's kind of, you know, morality, but
Yes.
it was also to her ability at that point in time.
Right.
I'm
All
just
right, I
saying,
think
Cal
that-
never would have put Crypto in that situation.
I think that pretty much sums up our review of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. I did have one last question. I was going to ask, and I kind of forgot earlier. Did you guys have any prior reading experience whatsoever with the character of Supergirl, or is this your guys' first
No.
time? None?
First time reading
Wow.
any Supergirl at all.
I read the first arc of Supergirl Rebirth because I read all of the Rebirth first arcs.
Yeah, I read some of those Art Germ cover ones in Rebirth era.
I collected a lot of those covers, the Art Germ,
Yeah, I have most
any
of
of the
them.
ones that
Collect the
Amanda
Art Germ
Connor did
covers.
with
Didn't read
Crypto
any of
on
them.
them. Like
Oh, yeah.
I was,
Oh, yeah.
I was in for all of those, but I did not
sure.
read them.
Yeah.
Give me a nice Amanda Connor Supergirl and Crypto cover. I'm in.
Nice.
I'm certainly not opening it.
I would like to see Connor done in this his own little kind of series like this. I mean, they have, but I mean, like a good one by Tom King or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Texas Manipul run was pretty good. Was that Adventure Comics?
That was
Okay.
very good. Actually, the Jeff Lemire one before the reboot of New 52 was solid.
Oh,
It was
I bet.
actually, if there was like one just him story, I would recommend that. If you want to read a team story, read the Johns stuff, like especially like the first
Johns
two Teen Titans arcs that Jeff Johns did. It's really good. It's a lot of top quality stuff with Connor, because that's where
nice.
Tim Drake finds out via Lex Luthor that he's a clone of Lex Luthor and Superman together. And they have to cope with what to do with that information, and it gets really good from there. That being said, I think that wraps everything up. Why don't you guys tell everyone where people can find you? JB, we'll start with you.
Yeah, how you doing? You can find me on Instagram at DiscoveryBayComics, all one word. I'm also on Thursday nights on the Lords of the Long Box YouTube channel, where I'm on the panel giving you the Shakers list, otherwise known as the Ofer list. Not your normal top 10 list. A lot of very strange, odd books and weird sales that the writers over at Cover Price kind of procure for us. So Lords of the Long Box on Thursdays, Instagram. I've got a YouTube channel, don't put anything on it, and I'm on Whatnot. I sling some books on Whatnot every once in a while. So yeah.
What about you, Jason? Where can people find you?
You can find me on the internet on Facebook and Instagram, Jason Cantu, or on my other meme pages called Slow Heavy Metal Music Playing. And Pooh and Tim's about little stuffed Pooh and wearing Timberland boots. A bunch of memes with those guys. I'm on another podcast called The Suck, SUCC. There's a bunch of other meme guys, and we talk about just things that suck in the world, just little current event things and funny, weird articles and things like that. At work, you can find me at 20buckspin.com. It's a record label that deals with extreme metal music if you like that kind of thing. One of our bands is called Holder. It's a black metal band that's on the cover of the newest Decibel magazine, which is the heaviest metal magazine you can find out there. It's on the Decibel tour. So the label and magazine are doing a whole entire tour together. Things are going great there. So check out 20buckspin.com, buy some vinyl records, and get your metal on.
Nice.
Awesome. Drew, can you be found anywhere?
You cannot find me. I'll find you. No, I'm DruManchu on the Instagrams, and that's really the only place you should look for me. I might look for you, but chances are you'll never find me.
Like Clem. Keep
Yeah,
searching.
yeah. I'm not going around off in the purples or nothing, but don't come looking for me.
I'm CWoodard19 on pretty much any format, Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, Instagram, probably Facebook. I don't really do much over there besides communicate with Messenger, Xbox, PS5. Great Legends probably sending me invites now.
The spam is flowing.
CWoodard19. But yeah, follow me on Instagram. Follow me on this channel here, CWoodard19. And JB, it's been a while since I've heard you say the sign out. Can you sign us out tonight?
Is there a specific sign out? Because I know what I use every day now.
It was always you before you would always.
Because I always tell everybody not to forget that
I forgot I had a good time. Is all I know.
Yeah, don't forget that we had a good time. Everybody.
Did JB forget that we had a good time?